Welcome, everyone. This is Marla Miller from marlamiller.com presenting our fourth episode, yay, of Literary Salon, Learning Prose from the Prose. Today I have with me Brett Battles, who I met at the Southern California Writers Conference back in September of 2013. I defined Brett as a hybrid author because he comes from traditional and is now in the entrepreneurial publishing movement. And it was interesting when we talked in our dress rehearsal, he said, you know, I don't see myself that way, but I think that's actually what I am. I think that the movement from traditional to indie publishing or entrepreneurial publishing, whatever you want to call it, is only going to grow. It has to grow, just probably because of economics. For those of you who are just turning into Literary Salon, this kind of dovetails with what I just said to you. I decided to launch this show because the entrepreneurial publishing movement is so big, and it's exciting. I come from traditional publishing and was a longtime freelance writer and published through a big house, and I have now found myself in the indie movement, and I'm delighted with it, but I'm a little concerned, and I think that many of us out here are. And it's because there's really no barriers anymore to publishing our stories, and so I think some of us are publishing a bit too soon. I thought the best antidote for that is to offer a show, short and sweet, 30 minutes, we're in and out, with profiling authors who are very successful, who have worked very, very hard, and can share with you a little bit about their experience and perhaps give you some tips, perhaps make you think twice about pushing the publish button. I asked them if they would like to read a little bit of their storytelling, just to give you a taste. Not to say that everyone who is entrepreneurially publishing is prematurely doing that, but I think some are, and so I'm hoping that Literary Salon, Learning Prose from the Prose, will be a tool in your toolbox that you'll click on and take notes and perhaps even send to your writerly friends. And with that, I'm going to introduce Brett Battles. Brett, thank you so much for coming on Literary Salon. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You know, I was so impressed with you last September that I literally went home and wrote that blog probably at white hot speed. I'm not kidding you, because the conference was, you know, it had so much about indie, you know, to indie, not to indie. And you came on as the keynote, and you delivered such an impassioned keynote to us about, first of all, it's about falling in love with writing, which you did. I mean, I remember you saying that from the age of 12, there was nothing else you really wanted to do but become a storyteller.
Absolutely, absolutely. I often say, you know, it's what I do best. And I'm not saying that I'm good at it or that I'm better than anyone else, but of all my various talents or lack thereof, it would be at the top of the list. It's my superpower. Writing is my superpower.
Well, I will tell you that the Reading Society has validated that, because you are the winner of several awards. I know that in 2008 you won the Barry Award Thriller for the Barry Award for your second in your series. Your Becoming
Jonathan Quinn series, yeah.
Your Jonathan Quinn series, and you won that for, was it Deceived?
Yeah, The Deceived, correct.
Okay, and that was your second in this series. I want to talk a little bit about for those of you who love suspense and thriller as I do. I mean, you really must read Brett Battles' this series, if no other. If you don't mind, Brett, I know that this was a series that got you published initially. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
The Cleaner, which is the first book in the series, was my first published novel, yes.
All right. And what year was that, Brett?
It came out in 2007.
Very good. So I just want, I have to read all the titles of the Jonathan Quinn series. The first one, The Cleaner, The Deceiver, Shadow of Betrayal, The Silenced, The Destroyed, The Collected, The Enraged, The Discarded, And now you're working on, is it the Rewinder or
No,
just Rewinder?
I'm working on Rewinder, which actually isn't part of the Quinn series.
Oh, it isn't.
No, it's
All
a
right.
standalone. That's a whole different thing, whole different
Good.
ball of wax.
All right, then we're gonna hold off on that because I want you
Right.
to talk about Rewinder. But then you wrote Becoming Quinn, and I think that was slipped in maybe after your sixth or seventh in
I
the
think
series.
I actually wrote it in between books 4 and 5.
Okay.
So,
I wanted to ask you, given the titles and how seductive they are for any thriller reader, was Sue Grafton an influence for you?
for as far as titles or
Yeah, these titles are catchy.
oh well, thank you. No, not necessarily. I actually I have to thank my first editor at Random House with the cleaner, because I could not figure out the title of that book, which sounds
Really?
crazy because it's the most obvious title ever. I had like 2 or 3 different titles for that book, and we were trying to think of it, and she goes, "Well, what about the cleaner?" And I went, "Well, duh, of course, yeah, that sounds perfect." Then all the other ones, I came up with all the other ones, as I was writing, and usually, often before I even wrote the book, I'd have a title. Which isn't always the case with books I write, but with the Quinn series, I often have the title before I even fully know the story, and it helps inform the story too, because I always have that. It's kind of a theme that runs throughout the story, hopefully, anyway.
And so your first editor at Random House got you on that path. I think it was
right.
That the value of a good editor, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is,
sure.
writing is, you write in a vacuum, but you don't you don't complete a book in a vacuum, because it takes a team to bring a book out, but it takes one person to get it on paper, basically.
Speaking of team, I want to talk about the fact that you went from traditional to entrepreneurial, and I'm going to assume that when you did that, Brett, you lost a big team, and I want to talk a little bit about how you replaced that, if you wouldn't mind. So, would you tell us which book went into a little history?
Well, I had 5 books with Random House, with Bantam Dell, which is part of Random House, and then I didn't get my contract wasn't renewed, and part of it was because of converging imprints, and the people who were my supporters were gone, so the new people, I wasn't their guy, so naturally I got let go. That's business. I get that and everything. That was 2010, fall 2010. And I'm suddenly panicked because I don't know what I'm going to do. My agent and I talk about pitching to another publishing house, seeing what we can get out of that. At the same time, I'm seeing a little bit of the indie stuff is starting to happen, and I've been curious for the year before that a little bit more, because Joe Conrath is a good friend of mine, and so and he's been really big in that. And so,
good guy to have as a friend.
Yeah, and so seeing what was going on with him, kind of started to inspire me. And then Blake Crouch was doing it, and a couple of other people I know started doing it. And I'm sitting there going, well, I want to give it a try, but I'm not really sure. And so I had to assemble my team, and it's basically, I had to write. What I did was I wrote 2 books. One that my editor or my agent was going to take out to publishers, and one that I was going to just try to put up independently and see how that did, just to get a taste, get my toe in. But in the process, I'm putting together a team. Which can basically consist of an editor who also does my copy editing, and cover designer. I have a couple different that I work with depending on the books and everything like that. And then the occasional beta reader as I need them. And then I just kind of go. I mean, I probably would need even more support in my team if I hadn't had the experience of being traditionally published prior to that, because I came into publishing, I was still really sloppy at the beginning. With loopholes, holes in my plots and things. I say, well, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Now I don't let that happen. I have my the editor who I had the longest when I was Random House, Danielle, her voice is always in my head when I'm writing about when I try to let myself get away with things. I don't do that anymore. So I'm doing a lot of self-editing, but I still have to employ an editor to do that. So anyway, I wrote the 2 books and ended up, instead of sending either of them out to publishers, I went ahead and put them both up independently. And that first year, that first year of 2011, so that was March 2011 when I started, so over 3 years ago now. But that was a scary year for me,
Sure.
Going independent from being in the traditional, and the traditional had allowed me to go just like a year before that, or 2 years before that, to go full-time writing. And so I didn't want to go back to having a real job, per se. Writing is a real job, but it's a different. Of course it is. But so it was a very touch and go year, and what I found was that I could see the potential, though, in that first year. I could see how it was going to work. Really? I could see that the key for me would be, and I do think this helps with a lot of people. It's not the key for everything. Number one is quality work. That is, if your book isn't quality, you shouldn't put it. That's why we're here. There. And you can't be the judge of your own quality if you haven't had the experience there ahead of time. And even then, you need other people to kind of quality check you and everything like that. So you need to write the best book that you can, and then get the opinions of people that you trust but may not like their opinions, but they may be right. So you have to think about this stuff and use a professional editor for this kind of stuff. Those people are available. That's the key. You can write a bad book and get it up there and it could sell a lot, but the problem is people aren't going to necessarily buy your second book or your third book or your fourth book, because you've kind of soured them to your work. Plus you're going to start getting a whole bunch of 2 and 3 star reviews, which is going to be death. So it's important for quality work. And the other thing for me was it was a combination of quality and quantity. The more material I had up there, the more books I had for sale, I've always talked about it as I'm creating my snowball. And every book, it just adds to that snowball as it's going downhill. And the books I put out 3.5 years ago are still making money for me every month now. But those are added on to the books that I put out 2.5 years ago and 1.5 years ago and 2 months ago, and it just becomes more and more and more, making a nice, for me, a nice snowball, which works very well. Absolutely. Everybody's going to be different. You're not necessarily going to sell a lot of books. You may wonder why. Who knows why? It could be your cover. It could be the book needs more editing, or maybe not. Maybe the book is fine. It just hasn't had the exposure. But the beauty about the ebook thing is that if it doesn't hit right now, it might hit in a year from now. Right. Or the thing is, you need to get more material up there, because readers, once they read an author, they want to read more of the author. That doesn't mean you have to do tons of stuff. I do a lot, and I probably do. I'm probably one of the writers who puts out more than most people. But even just 1 or 2 books a year that's good. That's a great pace, and you just need to get the more material up there so that people can see that there's more that they can go to, that there's more that they can read beyond just that first one. Sorry,
one of the things that I'm concerned. No, one of the things that I hear you, and I even was taking notes, Brett, because what you're saying is just so spot on. One of the things that I'm so concerned about with our new options is that people are hearing, oh, it's quantity. You've got to get quantity up there. And so what I'm seeing, and actually have been, I've seen up close and personal, are people putting out, volumes of stuff or several, but they're not good. And so it's not just the number of books, but it's the quality. And for you, for a writer like yourself, people know that if they're going to get hooked on one of your series, they're getting hooked on an author who's been around the block several times and knows his way around storytelling. So it's not just I just had to jump in and add that. It's not just the quantity, but for someone with a backlist like yours, Brett, you know, I could see if you're a patient man, and I'm assuming you are, that the entrepreneurial publishing option could offer you a very nice lifestyle.
Yeah, it's done very well for me, thankfully.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, it is
really
very nice.
wonderful.
But I would add to that, you know, there are a lot of first-time authors or first-time published authors whose quality is great also.
Fabulous.
And it's not just a product of the fact that I have an established background or anything like that. I do think, you know, quality doesn't matter what your experience level is. Quality needs to be your number one thing, because, like I said before, what you may get that first reader, and you may get some of them back for your second book. But what you're doing is you're going for short-term gains, whereas this can be a long-term gain scenario, and in which you're going to make a lot more money, or just have the satisfaction of having published. Because, you know, writers may or may not make a lot of money in the long run. None of us have gone in this solely to make money. We're writing because that's what we do. It's nice if we can make money. I mean, let's be real about that. But
you betcha.
But at least we have the opportunity to get our work out there. Whereas, you know, in the past, actually, you know, when it was strictly a traditional publishing world, you know, as Hugh Howey points out on his blog often, is that, you know, 2% of people really ever got their books out there published, and of those, it's the elite of the elite that get the big push.
You know, it's.
I mean, tons of traditionally published authors don't make money. I mean, don't make that much money. You know,
that's exactly it. And I think that one of the things that's important to dispel out here. I just moderated a agent panel at the Santa Barbara Writers Conference, and you know, the message that one of the agents was delivering was, look, you know, only one. I know you're hearing about Hugh Howey, but only 1% in indie make money, and so we had to chime in and say that's about the same as, you know, who made money in traditional. They don't tell you that. Because of the aura around, you know, the tradition of.
I think I'm going to dispute that 1% makes money in.
That's what she said, and so we had to go after that.
I don't think that's actually true. I mean, I don't have the numbers, but I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that the author earnings reports that Hugh Howey and Data Guy have been putting together, and I've seen, you know, just anecdotally from people, you know, even if you're making $10, $15 a month on your books, you're making more than you would by sending it to a traditional publisher that says no.
That's right.
Right? I mean, if your book is good, but, you know, again, you want it to be good. But nonetheless, we're talking straight economics. You have the opportunity here to at least, you know, have lunch money that you wouldn't have gotten any of it. You know,
absolutely.
There's another myth I'd love to dispel is
please do.
That I was listening. It was on some NPR show. I think it was On Point or something like that. They were doing something on traditional publishing, and they had a lot of different people speaking, and it was really a lot of. In fact, they had somebody from one of the author guilds, or from Authors Guild, who, you know, obviously was speaking for traditional publishing, and which seemed kind of strange to me because there are so many authors out here who are actually doing really well or enjoying this market, and the point of at one point it got called, you know, sometimes it's like called vanity press because, you know, you still have to pay money to get some of your stuff up there, you know, but the truth is, of course you've got to pay. You've got to pay for your editor. You've got to pay for your cover. That's business expense. But if you go to a publisher, you're paying for that stuff too. It's called the percent that the publisher is keeping.
You're damn right.
And the difference is your publisher is keeping that percentage for the lifetime of the contract you have with them. Whereas for me, or for anyone as a independent publisher or author, the cost that we put out is a finite number. If I'm paying $500 for a cover and $500 for editing, I'm just throwing numbers out that shouldn't be taken as anything. That $1,000 is all I'm ever going to pay.
That's exactly right.
unless I want to change the cover myself.
That's
If I have a
right.
book with publishing, they're taking, 80% of the profits, or 90, or
You
what is
bet.
it, 80% of the profits
Yeah.
all the time.
And then
Forever.
your agent's taking another 15 before
Yeah.
you get your piece.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
I don't want, I'm not trying to bash traditional publishing, because it's a wonderful thing, but we need to be clear about these facts, that it costs to traditional publish just as much as it costs, or well, costs more to traditional publish in a way than it costs to independently publish. I'm not trying to push anybody in any one direction, but you need to know the facts, and you need to have that inform your decision of which direction you want to go and try to go.
And very well said, Brett. And the other thing that authors need to know, or people or writers who want to be authors need to know, is that the window into traditional publishing is very, 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 very small. And
getting smaller all the time.
Getting smaller all the time. And to think that you're going to get published through that avenue is, God bless you. I hope you do, if that's what you want. But it's not the old days.
And unless they're they get that magic, 6 to 7 figure contract, they're not going to. Look, my second contract with Benham Dell was a 6-figure contract, and that's what allowed me to quit. Which
is sweet.
And then I got dropped. I mean, it wasn't.
Isn't that interesting?
It was more towards the lower end, but nonetheless.
Can I make this point, Brett? Here's the thing. The reason, one of the things that I think, you just saying that you got a 6-figure offer, even if it was low 6 figures, and then they dropped you, that really speaks more about the trouble that the industry hit, not their authors, because they wouldn't have dropped you 10 years ago. No way. They would have built you up to go, right?
Right.
Absolutely, because you were making money.
There was a timing problem for me, because it was during when all the economy tanked and everything. So I got completely caught up in that. And I hold no ill will towards them at all. I get it. It's business. But the other thing to remember for people out there about advances, I mean, a low 6-figure advance sounds good, but it's spread over the lifetime of 2 books. So that could be spread over 4 years, because some of it's are the hardcover release, some of it are the paperback release, blah blah blah. It's cut up, so it's not nearly as wonderful as it might sound.
Yes.
The higher your advance is, of course, that's different. But not that many people are getting, $600, $500, $600, $1 million a book. That's right. That's a small percentage too. So when they're talking about the small percentage of independent authors who are making a lot of money, well, it's the same with the traditional publishers. A very small percentage of them are making a lot of money. It's the same thing.
We don't go into this. We haven't ever historically gone into the business of writing with the intention of making money. We write because we have to.
Right.
It's just it's in our soul. And speaking of that, since we've spent some time talking about the business, which I really appreciate, Brett. Thank you so much.
No problem. I enjoy talking.
Good. Could we talk a bit about the literary? I know that I had asked if you wanted to read a bit, you could, and you're working on Rewinder now.
Right.
It's a standalone book.
It is.
I didn't know if perhaps you wanted to talk a little bit about that, maybe read a little tiny bit of that or whatever, because we've got about 9 more minutes.
Right. Let me talk a little bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to. I might read just like a couple lines.
It'd be fine. That'd be great. Whatever you want.
Sure. I don't want to give too much away about this
please
book.
Don't.
I'm really excited about it. It's something a lot different for me. It is a thriller, but it's kind of it's got a sci-fi edge to it. But it's not it's about the sci-fi, but it's not about the sci-fi. It's all set in modern. Well, it's not all set in modern day. There is time travel involved in my book.
Cool.
So it's about these people whose perceived job, or who they think their job is, they are rewinders. They go back, they follow families' histories back in time just to verify lineages and family trees and stuff. They don't get involved in anything, but they're observers, and they're instead of looking at records that we all have, they can actually go back and see what happens and see who is with who,
Cool.
and
So
and
that's the
they're
time.
creating all these things. That's their job. But it's a you know, that's what they're told that they're doing it for. They're told they're doing it for their clients who need this stuff, but it's not exactly the way things are. And you know, just like anything, if you accidentally, you know, that old story, if you accidentally step off the path and kill the butterfly, it changes the future. Things can happen if you accidentally change something in the past, in this book too. So it's
interesting.
Yeah. So it's you know, and my people can never go farther than wherever they are biologically timed in the future. So you can't go into the future, but you can go into the past. And it's a painful journey too. So there's a whole bunch of different rules and things that go on with it, which is really exciting to me. But it's this character story, and you know, because characters are the heart of any story, and if your characters aren't good, you can have the greatest plot in the world, and it'll fall flat. So I'm really excited about this. I'm really excited about the characters and what happens and everything. So it's a very exciting book, and I can't wait to get it done and get it out there. I'm finishing it up now, and hopefully it'll be out mid to late August. I'm looking at right
Wonderful.
now. So,
now, if you wanted to read something, we can go ahead and do that. But if not, I'm going to talk a little bit about your website.
Okay. Well, I will read it. It's
go ahead, do it, please. We love that.
Short lines. Okay.
I love it. Okay, this is from Rewinder.
This is the start of chapter 2.
Cool.
Stop. I read somewhere that everyone is the hero of their own story. Maybe that's true for most people, but not for me. I'm Denny Younger, destroyer of worlds. You wouldn't be here if not for me. That's it.
Got it.
Yeah.
And tell me something. I know that you have a love of science fiction, and is this the first time that you've written, or at least ventured over into sci-fi, or have you done that before?
Well, my Project Eden series is more. It has a sci-fi aspect to it.
All right.
And this isn't. I mean, it sounds like it's hard science fiction. And while the time travel aspect, I guess, would be, I mean, not hard that's actually a technical term. I don't mean it that way, but a science fiction book. It really is more of a personal story. Is it? And that is just the device for the chaos.
Created around. Sure.
Yeah,
and the world that you created is your world. I have to tell people that brettbattles.com is a website that they really should be going to, because you offer some Q&As on there that have lots of good information for writers. But I clicked on your books page, and I just want to read the categories of books that you have published. And keep in mind that Brett Battles has published about 23 books. He wasn't even quite sure if it was 22 or 23, and here's why. So he's got on his books page the Jonathan Quinn novels, Alexandra Poe novels, co-written with Robert Gregory Brown, Project Eden thrillers, Logan Harper thrillers, standalone thrillers, of which Rewinder will be
one of those.
Yeah, it will. And then you've also done middle grade YA novels.
Right. And novel so far, but yeah.
Here Comes Mr. Trouble.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love that title. And you've done some anthologies as well. So, boy, when you say that you're a full-time writer, Brett Battles, you're a full-time writer.
It's my job. I mean, if I'm not sitting down every work day writing for 5 or 6 or 7 hours, then I'm not doing my job. You know, I mean, and I don't mean job in the drudgery part. I mean job in the career sense. And this is what I want to do. And if I want to keep doing it, I need to work at it. It's not going to just magically appear on the paper. That's exactly it. And again, we'll wrap up this session, which was really informative, and I just love talking to you. But I just want to echo what you're saying, Brett, and that is that it is a job, it's a career, and to have a great idea for a story and to even write a first draft that you might have written 10 times still does not make a readable, published work. It might, as you said, it might. But for most of us, we've got to be on the job hours a day, days on end for several years. At least I did before I had the audacity to think
that I could pitch a book.
Right.
And while I grew up in the old ways where we kind of were, it was fearful. I mean, agents were, right?
Right.
And we can tell stories about that. But part of, I think, the plus of growing up during that era, or becoming a writer during that era, is because I knew the competition was just stiff, fierce, and if I didn't put the best story I could possibly put out there, not only were people not going to read it, but I might be really embarrassed down the line. And I just so appreciate it when authors of your standing come on and tell people, whether you go indie or whether you go traditional, it's always about the story.
Right. Oh, it definitely is always about the story. Absolutely. And I think, the bottom line for me is, whether it's your first novel and you think it's ready to go, or it's your 20th novel and you think it's ready to go, you should always have professional help with it. Before, if you're going to put it out to the public and you're going to ask them to pay for it, you should invest in it, because this is a business. And investing in your novel means investing in an editor or a copy editor, proofreader, all that kind of stuff. That is part of the investment. That is the contract you make with the reader. The readers make their commitment is they're going to pay you for your book. Your commitment is you're going to give them something they can read, and that's not going to trip them up. And it doesn't matter how many books you've had out or anything, but those are the steps you need to make that commitment if you're going to do it. That would be all I would say on that. And anybody can do that, and it's good to have an extra pair of eyes is awesome, so.
Well, I will just end with this. I couldn't have said it better than you did. I would only disagree on this point. I don't think everyone can be good storytellers.
Oh, well,
I think that. Yeah, I think
I said that everyone could be. I'm not saying it's possible that you could be in general. You could be a good storyteller.
You could, but
yeah, I know people who can't tell stories for worth a dime. So
exactly, and that's the only reason why I jumped in there. But Brett, really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much. So Rewinder may be coming out in August.
It should be late August, early September at the latest, I would think.
We will look for that. For those of you who are interested in knowing more about Brett Battles, please go to his website, brettbattles.com. If you want a book for any reason, I'll bet he's got it on his website. Brett, thank you so much for coming on Literary Salon. And I hope you come back. In fact, maybe when Rewinders comes out.
Hey, I would love it. That would be
good. I'm going to invite you. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Okay.
And to our listeners at Literary Salon, I hope that you enjoy it. I hope that you tell your literary friends that it might be a show worth clicking on. And until the next time, be well and keep writing.